Welcome to the audio podcast ministry of The Bridge. In all that we do, our priority is to lead all people from all places to be all in with Jesus. We hope that by providing this message in this way, it will be an encouragement to those of you who have already decided to follow Jesus, as well as a way home for those of you who have not yet said yes to Him. You can find out more, as well as support this ministry, by going to bridgeclarksville.com.
All right, so we're at the beginning of summer, and we're starting this new series that you're calling Summer Rules.
Yeah.
Which I love the name of that. Is it R-U-L-Z?
It's with three exclamation points
Okay.
at the end.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it.
It's as hip as 1989 can be.
So what are some of your favorite things about the summer?
Well, most of my life, which is, I guess I've been a parent now for almost half my life, it was getting the kids home for the summer, and then the last few years that's changed, and now if I go home today, I'm home alone.
Yeah.
So it's very different now, but just looking forward to the 1 week vacation, which we already took because my son has his first post-college job now, so vacations are over. We had to get that in first. So now it's really just about the good weather, and there's just a sense of freedom and just that you feel. Even if it's not really exciting, it's supposed to be, and so you trick yourself into thinking it's summer,
Yeah.
and it becomes an excuse for being lazy or staying up a little later or whatever. So I just love the freedom of it. I think I will always live in semesters. Too many years of school to not view it that way.
Yeah, I'm the same with that as well, and so it still feels like, we should take the summer easy.
Yeah.
Because that's, you spent many years of your life doing that. I really enjoy the week trip, and we're the same. Like, we love going to the beach as well. And we just had, I think, what might have been in the fall our last beach trip with just the four of us, because now there's a son-in-law involved, and if we ever take her, I guess she'll want to bring him.
Yeah.
I guess so. One of my favorite things, though, is I like we don't get many days like this in Middle Tennessee, but warm day, low humidity, windows down, sunroof open, good music, and just being in the car driving like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But those days are few and far between. So we're in the beginning here of summer, and this new series has started. We just started last Sunday. Tell us a little bit about the series as a whole, what we're looking at.
Well, I'm not going to lie in front of you, because we were, I think, sitting beside each other and realized there are 10 Sundays between the end of school and the start of school. And summer, with people moving around, it's difficult to have a series that builds upon itself because people are in and out so much, and I get that. So looking at the 10 weeks and 10 commandments, that definitely they work together, but they're also able to singularly give us insight and direction. So looking at those beginning rules, what they are, what they're not, I think most of the time it comes with a negative, a prohibition more than anything. But being able to see them for what they are, and how they actually protect us, how God reveals His character to us, and how they set us apart as people, and just working through those. And rather than calling them the commandments of summer rules seems to work a little bit better.
It works a little better. Yeah. A little more palatable. Well, this Sunday you looked at the commandment dealing with the Sabbath, to keep it holy. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding or misconception of what that really means. I know for me, I was raised in a way of Sundays were days you don't work. But I was also raised in a home where that was my dad's work day, being a pastor, and it was a hard day for him, and it was not restful very much. But I think there's so much depth here. You even mentioned Sunday that how Jesus teaches that man was not created for the Sabbath, but Sabbath for the man, and that this rule, this commandment, is actually a gift to us. Mm-hmm. And when we begin to understand it correctly, I think we see the beauty in that. So you may have been raised in that same kind of mindset. No work on the Sabbath, on Sunday. Yeah. It's okay for the waiters and waitresses at O'Charlie's to serve us food, but how does that kind of mentality for thinking, okay, well, it's Sunday and we're just going to not work, and that's the thing, and if I am working, I'm disobedient. How does that mentality really fall short of what God's heart was?
Yeah, I think I think the whole body of Scripture has to work together. I think if we just had those 10 commandments on the tablet and nothing else, I think it would be pretty easy to legalistically say, this is work, this is not work. You're breaking God's heart, you're breaking God's law, you're going to get struck by lightning, that whole thing. And then when Jesus shows up and gives us a little points here and there, like healing on the Sabbath, and then had the example of the wheat and harvesting that this past Sunday, I think that really opens up your eyes to go, oh, okay, there is something more than that. But without that, I do think it's easy. And when you're reading through the second part of the Bible, the New Testament, especially the Gospels, you have these religious leaders who were being so careful to catch people sinning, and it's easy to just kind of pile on them. But they're steeped in this understanding before Jesus' teaching, and it makes a little sense to me as well. But when Jesus opened it all up and said, no, this is actually a gift that God has given for you, then you have to step back and go, in what way is the Sabbath a gift? And so I think that's what opens up the whole realm of understanding the Sabbath in its entirety and why it's set apart. That it was less about keeping just another command and more about the ultimate expression of faith, is to say, I have a lot to do, but I'm going to do nothing and trust that you get it done for me. Almost like fasting. I mean, I'm going to step aside from something that is important and ultimately express my faith that, God, you are going to get this done. And I'm also going to remember that you were the one that created everything. I created nothing. And so this day of rest, I look back and I don't really get to take credit for all I've done for 6 days. Really, I'm just remembering that you put everything in motion, everything that has ever been made by you, for you, and through you. And the Sabbath is that reminder. So to me, and I say for me because I haven't really worked this out, wasn't planning on even saying it right now, but I think for me, it's the ultimate expression of pride and rebellion to say, God, I need to do this, or I want to do this, and regardless of what you set in place as the ultimate way for me to live my life, I'm just going to choose my own way. Now, what is the Sabbath? I mean, in college I worked as a waiter, and I worked some Sundays, and it was very, very strange. Not because of you're going to get in trouble if you work. I just had never done that. For us, it was getting up, going to church, going home during the fall, watching football, going back to church for the evening, and then coming home and getting ready for school the next day. So that was my rhythm. There was nothing to be done. If we ate, we were going to my grandmother's house, and she would cook. I say if we ate. We always ate lunch, but we rarely went out. It was usually eating as a family, so I didn't even think through that whole restaurant thing as much. And then in college, when I became a waiter, at about 12 o'clock, 12:05, the church people started rolling in. And they were the worst tippers. They were the rudest people.
I was going to ask, because that's the word that's out there.
It's true. I mean, it really, really is true. And it felt weird because I knew they were looking at me as someone who skipped church. And I'm looking at them as someone who is not being the church. So it was just a little back and forth and for a while. But I think ultimately realizing there has to be some rhythm in my life where I just stop and pause and say, God, you handle this. I'm just going to stop and worship. I'm going to stop and focus. I'm going to stop and remember. I'm going to stop and be thankful and stop and be grateful. So I think ultimately that's the holy part, the setting apart of the day.
I'm glad you said that, because that is where the catch was for me. Of, okay, make it holy. Oh, well, then this involves like a activity. You go to church and that's holy, and it is that idea. Well, it's set apart for unique purpose and use. And so when that is the understanding of that, of what it means to keep the Sabbath, it means so much more than just my physical work and activity. So would you say that kind of rest, that spiritual rest, that it involves more than taking a day off work and to trust God in that, but maybe it's also situational, like something hard going on in life that you're stressed about or worrying about, or a difficulty somewhere. Can you have a Sabbath rest from those things as well?
Apart from like the day, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is an underlying teaching there, a principle that we're not made to work all the time. When we do work, it's a reflection of our faith. So the harder we work, I think in a way it's more of an expression of faith. You've given me this gift, you've given me this opportunity. The whole idea that Paul wrote, whatever you do it for the glory of God. So I can be lazy at work and still not really be working to honor God. So it's less of that. I mean, we've seen those little work hard, play hard things, and we act like it's, you know, just some sort of bumper sticker. That's kind of truth.
Yeah.
I mean, God has said, you know, work hard, play hard, rest hard. Like all of that is there. I think we have to be mindful of ourselves. I think for me, one of the more frustrating things as in the role that I play, pastor, is watching people not want to work through and figure some things out for themselves. They just want to be told what to do. And sometimes you just have to stop as a mature believer and know yourself, know your weaknesses, know your struggles, know where you are in life, know where you are relationally, financially, emotionally, so to speak. And then be willing to gauge, okay, I'm going to need more rest right now because I'm not well. I need to step away. Or I've been sleeping a lot, but I've spent very little time recognizing God and spending time in His presence with His people. And so it might feel like work to get up and get ready and go to church or go to your connect group or whatever it may be, but that work is ultimately going to provide spiritual rest. And so I think it's, you know, it's a little silly. I can't get up on Sundays to go worship with my family, but I can, you know, get 4 hours sleep to get up to make sure I get to the beach in time. I mean, and I'm, you know, me too. So I think we're a little more hypocritical than we want to admit. I mean, there's something to having a routine and a rhythm. We're all creatures of that, and God gives us this rhythm: 6 days, one, and then takes this other day off. And I'm grateful that not every person takes the same day off. I'm glad the hospitals don't close on Sundays. I'm glad all those things are open. But even for those men and women, they're not made to work 7 hours a day, and there needs to be some kind of time in them that they pause and reflect and remember.
Yeah. You know, you had mentioned about being able to, just saying I need to rest, like kind of getting to that point of realizing this needs to happen. What might be some of those signs that we're lacking in rest spiritually, that we'd say, okay, this is beginning to come up. It's clear I need to.
Yeah, I think there are times when you find yourself, if you're willing to evaluate yourself, which I think every single day it's important to be mindful of what you're doing and how you're doing it, what you're saying, how you're saying it. When you start responding differently to things that you've responded to previously, you're a little shorter, a little more frustrated, it's a little more difficult to extend grace, a little more difficult to extend mercy. Just being bothered by some things that didn't bother you before, like your phone going off.
Yeah, it's my mom.
It's your mom. You might need to go take that.
I'll get it.
Okay. But just when you're responding differently, I know that's for me. I'm a pretty patient guy. I'm pretty relaxed in many areas, most of the time. And when I find myself not being that way, that's a good sign for me that I'm not as spiritually rested as I probably need to be, and my temper gets a little shorter. I start running hot a little bit, and I can play it off in circumstance. But I'm old enough now where I've dealt with most circumstances, and I know how I respond to them. And if I'm not responding that way, usually I'm a little off there. So I would think my response to conflict, response to surprises or frustrations, is for me probably the beginning And for me too, if I feel like I haven't taken time to see beyond today, I dream a lot, and I look ahead a lot, and I try to celebrate the moment, but I'm always looking at what's next. And if I find myself realizing I haven't really thought down the road in a good minute, that's a good sign that I need to pause and step back, because that's one of the things that I think that God has given me, is the ability to see things that aren't here yet and have that vision. And if I'm not leaning into that, then I'm missing out on something in a way that God's made me, I guess.
Yeah. You actually were, we had a conversation, two of us about a month or so ago, where I was feeling really overwhelmed with some things, was having a hard time really handling anything the way I needed to, and was feeling like I need to take a couple days, and you were very generous, like, go do what you need to do. And I think there are moments in life where it may require, you need a couple of days out. And I went off to a friend's cabin and processed through some things I needed to process through, and it very little agenda, just kind of listening to the Lord and seeing what He says. Not everybody can just get up and go and do that. So preemptively, and this is what I want to say. So spiritual rest doesn't just need to be reactive. It's one of those things that you were talking about, rhythm, building it in, so it becomes, I'm getting this way, so I need to rest. So instead of that, it's, I know my tendencies if I don't. So I want to build this rhythm into my life. So if we're looking at, what do I do? And I want to have maybe time every day just to think through. Because you mentioned that we're really good at filling the downtime. And you asked the question in the first service, what's the deal with our will to chill? Which I hate that didn't come out in the second service. But
they weren't ready for it.
But we're giving it to them.
They weren't ready for it.
So what are some things then that you say, here are things to try? Because like me, I'm going to think, I got to do this. But what is it really? What might really be helpful if someone's never tried to rest spiritually and they want to put that in each day? What are some things to think about?
Well, I'm going to, I guess, contradict what I said earlier in a way with this one, but I wish people would just allow God to help them dream and think for themselves and work through this. But I also know that I'm coming from a perspective of having walked with Jesus since I was 7 years old, so that my perspective is going to be a little different, and I'm going to be a little more comfortable just talking with God. I've known Him longer than some, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with someone else's experience. So I would encourage people, maybe they write down a prayer to begin their morning, or even better yet, search through Scripture, find a prayer or a song in the book of Psalms, and maybe that become your thing, and that's at least the kickstart. And maybe it leads into a 15 to 20 minute time with God every morning. Maybe for some people that's just not possible. I know my son is getting up at 5 and leaving at 5:45 every morning now for his new job. I do not anticipate there being a 30-minute time with God beforehand, especially at 22 years old, just having left college life. But I do know that, he's having his time with God. But if you don't have that, I think it's okay. But to put that down, write that down, have that in that space that you get up and go to where you meet with God and just recite that. I have several scriptures that I begin every day with. They're not unique to me. I didn't write them. They've been there thousands of years. But they've spoken to my heart. I put those together, and it's my prayer. And so every single day of my existence starts the same way, and has since January of 2018 when I started this different kind of thing. Now it's just I don't have to read it, of course, after 365 times 6, whatever that is, whatever that number is. I'm able to begin. And so then when I interact with my wife or with my kids or come here, I've already met with God. And if I'm a total dork or a tool to somebody else, then that's kind of on me. I just left the mountaintop with God, and if I'm going to turn around and act this way, then I need to rest, perhaps. But so for me, just finding that routine, and rather than just closing my eyes, lying in bed, and trying to start my day off there, or having some gratitude thing I'm saying, just having that scripture helps me.
Yeah. So one thing that I've started doing, so the Bible app, they give you a verse of the day, right? And on the we're not supporting Apple products, but
yes, we are.
But on the iPhone you can put a widget on there and it'll put that verse of the day right there. So that's on like my front screen, and it helps me not to just jump right into there's a text or there's an email or whatever. But it reminds me. I'll read it. I'll think about it. Consider and then usually that'll lead into more time or what. Just depending on what's going on in the morning. But for me, it's a good way to catch my attention right off the bat before anything else. So it's good to have something during the day. It's good to have a day during the week that we're pausing from our labors. And I've heard others would say then once a month, if you can take once a week, if you can take like half a day, once a month, a full day, and maybe once a year get away for a weekend. There's something focused on that. But few minutes off the bat, beginning of the day, don't worry about the other, get going there. Okay, so we're going to continue on in the series. Next week doesn't necessarily build off what we just did. So what are you thinking about?
Well, there's a command about not having idols and images, and I know it's probably not burning in any of our hearts, but like, why was it important then? And what is that parallel today? Or is it completely just unnecessary for us? I don't think it is, but I think unpacking and trying to figure out what that is for us now, thousands of years later, where we don't have most of the images and things that they would have been familiar with. So we're going to jump into that and see what that's all about.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for the time this morning. Thanks for listening. Yeah, we hope to see you this Sunday.
Thank you for joining us today. If you live in the area, we hope you will soon join us in person. If you were unable to do that, we hope you will continue to stay connected with us by following this podcast and sharing it with your friends. For more information, go to bridgeclarksville.com.